The waitress said it so casually that I almost laughed. She placed 2 steaming mugs of coffee on our table, smiled at my best friend, and said, "You two make such a lovely couple." I opened my mouth to correct her, but before I could say a word, my best friend reached across the table and quietly touched my wrist. Her eyes met mine, and in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "Don't correct her." I had no idea that those 3 words would change the way I saw her, our friendship, and the lonely life I had been pretending was enough. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the people who quietly stay beside us when life becomes difficult, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this story, leave a comment, and subscribe to Wisdom Story House. Sometimes a simple story can remind us that the people we take for granted may be the ones who understand our hearts the most. Her name was Maricel, but everyone called her Mari. We had been best friends for almost 12 years. We met at a time when neither of us had much to offer the world. I was working long hours at a small printing company, trying to pay off debts left behind after my father's death, while Mari was taking care of her younger brother and working evenings at a bookstore. We became friends without ever planning to. She was the kind of person who remembered how I took my coffee, noticed when my voice sounded tired, and could tell I was upset even when I insisted I was fine. I was the kind of person who showed up whenever she needed help but rarely knew how to talk about my own feelings. For years, people assumed we were together. At weddings, family gatherings, grocery stores, and even at the hospital when Mari's brother had surgery, strangers would look at us and smile as though they had already figured out our story. We always corrected them. We laughed about it afterward. We were just friends, we told each other. Best friends. Nothing more. But friendship can become complicated when 2 lonely people become each other's safest place. That night at the diner, the rain had been falling since sunset. The windows were fogged, the neon sign outside flickered against the wet pavement, and the smell of coffee and warm cinnamon filled the room. Mari had asked me to meet her because she had something important to tell me. She looked different that evening. Not physically, but emotionally. She kept rubbing the edge of her napkin between her fingers, as if she were trying to find the courage to say something she had rehearsed 100 times. Then the waitress called her my girlfriend. Mari stopped me from correcting her. I looked at her with confusion, but she only gave me a small smile. For the rest of the meal, neither of us mentioned it. Yet something had shifted between us. Every ordinary moment suddenly felt like it carried a question neither of us dared to ask. When we finally stepped outside, the rain had become lighter. We stood beneath the diner's awning while cars passed through the shining streets. Mari looked at me and said that she had been offered a job in another city. It was a wonderful opportunity, the kind she had dreamed about for years. Better pay, better hours, and a chance to finally build a life for herself. I forced a smile and told her she should take it. She stared at me for a long moment and asked if that was really how I felt. I said yes. What I didn't tell her was that the thought of losing her terrified me. The next few weeks became strangely painful. Mari began preparing to leave. We packed boxes, ate cheap takeout, walked through our favorite park, and visited the little bookstore where she had worked for years. Everything felt like a goodbye, even when neither of us used the word. One afternoon, while we were carrying boxes into her apartment, I found an old photograph of us from years ago. We were standing outside the same diner, much younger, laughing at something I couldn't remember anymore. On the back, Mari had written a sentence in faded ink: "Some people arrive in your life quietly, then become the reason you don't give up." I sat on the floor staring at those words. That was when I finally understood. I hadn't been afraid of losing my best friend. I had been afraid of admitting that she had become much more than that. The night before her departure, we returned to the diner. The same waitress was working. She recognized us immediately and smiled. As she placed our coffee on the table, she looked between us and said, "So, are you two finally going to tell me how long you've been in love?" Mari laughed nervously. I didn't. The waitress walked away, leaving us in silence. Mari looked down at her coffee and whispered that she had loved me for years. She said she had never told me because she was afraid that if I didn't feel the same way, she would lose the one person who had always stayed. My heart felt like it had stopped. I told her that I had loved her too, but I had been too afraid to call it love because friendship felt safe. Losing her friendship seemed unbearable, so I convinced myself that wanting more was selfish. Mari wiped a tear from her cheek and smiled. Then she told me something that broke my heart. She said she wasn't leaving because she wanted to escape me. She was leaving because she had spent too many years waiting for life to begin. She needed to discover who she was when she wasn't taking care of everyone else. And suddenly, I realized loving someone doesn't always mean asking them to stay. Sometimes love means having enough courage to let them go where they need to go. The next morning, I drove Mari to the train station. I helped her with her suitcase, hugged her tightly, and told her I would be there, no matter how far away she went. She smiled through her tears and said that for the first time, she wasn't afraid of the future. 3 months passed. Then 6. We talked every night. We learned to miss each other without feeling abandoned. We learned that love wasn't supposed to be a cage or a promise that nothing would ever change. It was supposed to be the freedom to grow while knowing someone still believed in you. A year later, Mari came home for a visit. I took her to the same diner. The same waitress recognized us instantly. She walked over, looked at Mari, then at me, and smiled. "So," she said, "are you two still just friends?" This time, I laughed. I reached across the table and held Mari's hand. "No," I said. "We're finally brave enough to admit what we've always been." Mari squeezed my hand, and for a moment, neither of us said anything. Outside, the rain began tapping softly against the windows, just like that night years ago. But this time, the rain didn't feel like an ending. It felt like the beginning. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who believes that real love can grow from friendship, and subscribe to Wisdom Story House for more emotional stories. And before the story ends, comment "second chances" if you believe some people are worth waiting for, fighting for, and loving, even when life takes them far away. Because sometimes the person sitting beside you isn't simply your best friend. Sometimes they're the person your heart has been quietly choosing all along. And sometimes, all it takes is one unexpected sentence from a stranger to make you brave enough to finally tell the truth.